Welcome to this explainer. Usually we get this slow, steady trickle of rumors leading up to a new iPhone release, right? But what we're looking at today is, well, it's something entirely different. The info we're breaking down actually comes from a massive data breach, giving us a remarkably complete, behind-the-scenes look at the iPhone 18 Pro. If you love piecing together the raw blueprints of upcoming tech, let's jump right in and figure out exactly what Apple has been working on. Okay, let's dive into this. Unfortunately for Apple, this wasn't your standard supply chain whisper or, some blurry photo taken from across a dark room. One of their major suppliers was actually hacked. And just a few days after that breach, a literal treasure trove of internal documents and drop test videos for the iPhone 18 Pros just started surfacing online. It instantly raised the stakes. It completely transformed our understanding from just mere speculation to confirmed internal documentation. We essentially have the entire iPhone 18 Pro story mapped out right in front of us. Based on those leaked internal drop tests, the physical design is getting a major overhaul. We can clearly see that Apple is moving away from that two-tone industrial look of the 17 Pro. Instead, they're blending the back glass and the metal together for this really sleek, uniform look. Plus, that matte Apple logo, totally gone. It's been replaced with a striking mirror finish. We're also seeing some awesome new colorways in these tests, notably a silver and a really distinct dark cherry option. And interestingly enough, that dark cherry color was actually corroborated by a completely separate hardware leak of a physical SIM tray. And yeah, speaking of that SIM tray leak, it confirms that physical SIM cards are definitely sticking around for at least some international markets, even as Apple pushes hard for eSIM-only models everywhere else. Now check out this number. The dynamic island on the front of the 18 Pro is shrinking by a massive 35%. Since 2022, all those components inside the dynamic island have just been squished together right in the middle of the screen. But this leak reveals Apple is finally reconfiguring that hardware layout. They're taking the infrared Face ID sensor and moving it all the way over to the left, placing it fully beneath the display for the very first time. This clever little repositioning is exactly what allows them to shave off that 35%, making the front of the device look significantly more modern. Let's talk about the cameras, because those internal drop tests also showed a noticeably thicker camera bump. And thanks to some newly discovered calibration strings from that exact same supplier leak, we know exactly why. Apple is equipping all iPhone 8 Pro models with a variable aperture lens. For those unfamiliar, this is a physical mechanism inside the lens that actually adjusts its size to let more or less light hit the underlying camera sensor. It's a real game changer that drastically improves both visual quality and depth of field control. Now, while this is a massive upgrade for the primary sensor, I should point out the leaked documents don't show any specific info for the telephoto zoom or the ultra-wide lenses. That strongly suggests those two will probably just remain identical to what we currently have on the iPhone 17 Pro. It's also fascinating to see how Apple is tackling thermal performance this time around. Last year, remember they introduced their first vapor chamber cooling system? Well, it drew some pretty heavy criticism for being, frankly, tiny compared to the competition. Well, they took that criticism to heart. The process itself is really neat. Heat from the chip is absorbed by small water droplets, and those droplets turn into gas to swiftly move the heat away from core components. But step 3 is where things get really interesting this year. Apple is introducing a significantly larger vapor chamber that spans almost the entire portion of the phone. Instead of being constricted to just one small area, this massive new chamber dissipates heat across multiple components. This is absolutely crucial and will likely give the iPhone 18 Pro the best thermal performance in Apple's history by a huge margin. All that cooling is entirely necessary because of the absolute powerhouse sitting inside this device. We're looking at the new 2nm architecture-based A20 processor. The raw numbers here are incredibly impressive. It's rumored to be 15% more powerful and an incredible 30% more efficient year over year. But you know what's truly intriguing here? It's how Apple is physically rearranging the internals around this chip, specifically to accommodate artificial intelligence. Leaked schematics show a completely new packaging structure. First up, Apple is taking the RAM, which used to sit right above the chip, and they're moving it directly beside it, which, by the way, really aids in that thermal management we were just talking about. Second, they're upgrading to a new LPDDR6 type of memory. This greatly improves the bandwidth needed for the heavy memory consumption that comes with AI. And finally, there's clear evidence of a greatly increased neural engine size, which is the specific part of the chip dedicated to handling those complex AI tasks. When you put all this together, it feels like the very first iPhone chip built completely from the ground up for artificial intelligence. We're talking on-device image generation and a dramatically smarter Siri as the likely end goals here. So here's the catch. Not all Pro models are treated equally this year. especially when we start looking at the compromises. The leaked battery capacities reveal a pretty stark contrast. Check this out. If you opt for the base iPhone 18 Pro, your battery increases from 4,252 to 4,288 milliamp hours. That is an approximate 1% bump. I mean, it's practically non-existent. But if you look at the iPhone 18 Pro Max, the battery jumps from 5,088 to 5,567 milliamp hours. That's an increase of nearly 10%. Given that the previous Pro Max was already rated for 39 hours of continuous video playback, this huge upgrade could easily push the 18 Pro Max past 43 hours. It's wild. But that massive battery bump comes at a very literal physical cost. To fit that nearly 10% larger battery into the device, the 18 Pro Max is adding 0.25 millimeters in thickness and 7 grams in overall weight. You have to remember, the previous 17 Pro Max was already considered an incredibly thick and heavy device in the hand. And while Apple notes that the aluminum body helps manage the weight and aids in thermal performance, there's just no avoiding the fact that this upgrade will make an already bulky phone even bulkier. Seriously, you might actually be able to skip arm day at the gym if you carry this thing around. And that physical bulk brings us to our second major compromise: connectivity. Apple has been developing their in-house C2 modem for a while now, intended to handle both slow and fast 5G. However, during development, support for the ultra-fast millimeter wave 5G completely fell through. The C2 modem simply cannot support it. Because Apple has offered fast millimeter wave 5G in the US since 2020, they can't just take that feature away now. So this has forced Apple into a split chip release. If you buy the iPhone 18 Pro in the US, it'll still rely on a newer Qualcomm modem to ensure you get that fast millimeter wave 5G. But if you buy the international iPhone 18 Pro, you'll be getting Apple's nerfed in-house C2 modem. And now we have to look at the financial reality of all of these upgrades. With the new variable aperture camera, the massive vapor chamber, the 2nm A20 chip, and that LPDDR6 memory, component costs across the board have dramatically increased. Analysts are estimating that the entry-level cost for the based iPhone 18 Pro will jump from $1,099 all the way up to $1,399. Yeah, that is an astounding $300 price markup just to get your foot in the door of the Pro lineup this year. Normally, a massive price hike on the Pro models would just push budget-conscious buyers down to the standard base model, right? But the release schedule reveals a major problem. This coming September of 2026, Apple is only releasing the iPhone 18 Pro, the 18 Pro Max, and the new iPhone Fold, all of which feature those significant price markups. The standard, more affordable base iPhone 18 is actually delayed. It won't release until March of 2027. This means if you want a new, cheaper iPhone this September, your only option would be to buy the year-old iPhone 17. And honestly, that's an incredibly tough value proposition for anyone who's already waited an entire year to upgrade. Which brings us to the ultimate question you really have to ask yourself as a consumer. We've seen the internal documents. The leap in AI processing with the A20 chip is undeniable. The thermal management is completely revamped, and that variable aperture camera is a massive leap forward. But you're facing a $300 price markup, a noticeably heavier and thicker device if you want the battery gains, and a complete lack of a budget-friendly base model until next spring. So, weighing these incredible technological leaps against those stark physical and financial realities, is the AI-powered iPhone 18 Pro a necessary upgrade for you, or is it a definite skip? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the tech.